Hi, people. So recently I was in India, partly because I'm working with topics around democracy. And during my time in India, as in Delhi and in South India, I had several discussions with different people, like everything from intellectuals to Uber drivers to, let's say, entrepreneurs, um, discussing with me about the current war in Ukraine and the Russian aggression, and also why India is abstaining for in the United Nations Security Council and voting, if that is good or bad, and what India should do, so to say. So, based on that, I want to share some thoughts and opinions, and also I want to argue that why the Indian Union government should support Ukraine and Europe at this current moment. So for the start, I want to explain that what's happening now in Ukraine is a very brutal and horrible development where a large number of, in the first place, military personnel, but also civilians have died during the last 2 weeks of the war of fightings. And this is not a war that is between, some people want to frame it based on culture, or it's not a war between, let's say, like, Russian and Western civilization. It's actually a political war, which is about what is the position of the majority of Ukrainians that are supporting that Ukraine should become part of the European Union and should, let's say, politically distance itself from Russian influence. And you have to keep in mind that both, let's say, Ukrainians and Russians in general are considered to be Slavs, if you now speak about, let's say, kind of Slavic cultural constructions when it comes to languages. So, and also there is a lot of common history, because of the Soviet Union. But the main difference here is about politics. Most Ukrainians, for example, they support democracy, while a large number of people in Russia still support dictatorship and authoritarianism. Now, what I've heard from discussing with different people in India is that that one of the kind of strongest arguments for India supporting the Union government supporting Russia, or let's say abstaining at the current moment, is that Russia is kind of acting in a very rational way, because it would be similar that, let's say, imagine now if China would have military bases in Pakistan or have its troops in Pakistan, that would mean reaction from the Union government be to send the Indian military, the Indian army to attack Pakistan. And I can understand this argument, this position, because of all of the conflicts between India and Pakistan. And I can only say that the thing is that this kind of development is already happening. So there are indications that Chinese government would like to have some kind of influence, or let's say bases in Pakistan. And how to say, so it's not like that China has a military base at the moment, but it's the kind of development is heading to, let's say, towards that direction according to different analysis and predictions, so to say. So I want to present another picture, let's say another kind of argument that I think most of you who are Indians are able to understand. And that's something like this, because most, as I mentioned earlier, most of Ukrainians, they identify themselves as Europeans. So in the sense, meaning that they think that Ukraine should be part of the European Union as a more, let's say, political entity, as a union based on legislation, on governance, on democracy, as via European Parliament. So let's say, imagine now that the majority of people in Bangladesh, so Bengalis, they now say that they identify themselves as Indians, and they want to become part of the Indian Union, the Indian Federation. And then China comes and say, no, you're not gonna do that because that's against our national interest. and we want to control you. We want you like to do as we tell you. So this is kind of why the situation of you speak about European Union, Ukraine, and Russia can be described in that kind of way, because it's also about this kind of sense of, let's say, political belonging and identification. And also, I want to say that the Indian Union government should support both the European Union and Ukraine when it comes to the current situation, partly because India has so much more in common with Europe than compared, let's say, to Russia. So, for example, there is the case of democracy. So this means not only, let's say, elections every like 4 or 5 years, but also the whole process of having media debates, debates on different levels, like everything from expressing your opinions on streets to the kind of federal level and parliaments. And also, it's kind of about, let's if I now speak about cultural diversity. So both in India and Europe are very diverse. India is much more diverse compared to Europe. And to be honest, like even Russia is a, let's say, multi-ethnic and diverse society. But the only thing is that the Russian, let's say, the official level, like the Russian government, is more emphasizing on uniformity than on diversity, more, let's say, emphasizing on, let's say, Russianness than than about, let's say, kind of multiculturalism or multi-ethnicity. And this is a big difference when we now compare Europe, let's say European Union, Russian Federation, and Indian Federation, so to say. So those are the opinions and topics and aspects I wanted to present to you based on my current, like my recent experience in India when discussing with different individuals. And I really appreciate on my individual level as European citizen that the Indian Union government could change its position and provide moral, institutional, and political support for Ukraine at this current moment of very horrible and brutal developments. So, thank you very much for listening. Dhanyavad. And I wish you all a nice day.